So, yeah, I'm going to talk today about, I think the title is Formatting for Your Audience, and honestly I picked that because I was like, okay, this is broad enough that I can come up with something. and here we are. So my background, like she said, is teaching, which means that I am very adaptable, and if this just shuts off, I'll figure it out. And that's what Nelson's saying, oh, it's going to be fun. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be fine. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, because I was a teacher. We would have a fire drill in the middle of an AP exam, and it's like, it's fine. It's really fun. We'll figure it out later. So welcome. All right, so I know the question was asked before, but I want to see again, who's new to Tableau? New? All right, next question. Who would call themselves more intermediate? Like, I've been doing this for a few years. All right. And then I'm advanced. Who's advanced? I'm not advanced, but who says I'm advanced? All right, we got some advanced. So this presentation hopefully will cover the spectrum. I am going to start with intro, more of, okay, here's how you walk, how you crawl, and then the walk, and then the run. But we talk a lot in data visualization, data viz, but about the, about best practices. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you, every time I even hear myself say the word best practices, I cringe a little bit because they should, because it should depend, right? It should really depend on your audience. It should depend on your stakeholder. So I call this formatting for your audience because that's who we're really thinking about first. Okay? Something may have not saved correctly here. Well, there are 4 things I'm going to go over. One of them, I'm going to save it. You'll just be surprised what it is. The first thing I'm going to walk you through is how to avoid the rabbit hole. Because if you've been in Tableau, you know formatting is the rabbit hole. So we're actually going to do things in Tableau here to go, okay, how do you find this? How do you do this? What does this mean in Tableau? Then we're going to talk about aligning with your stakeholders, keeping it simple, but not too simple. And then, finally, the last thing that's a surprise, because I didn't write it. All right, so I can't avoid talking about formatting for your audience without covering a little bit, at least touching on, well, what does that mean? Because really it could be the wild, wild west if you don't dial it into some best practice. I like to hone in on the pre-attentive attributes, but all sorts of data visualization best practices are out there. You can Google them. There are talks for hours and hours on them. That is not what this is. Okay, we will hit on them. I will talk about them. I'll say, okay, we're going to use this pre-attentive attribute because of this, but I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole. But the idea is, of course, to design for your audience. So, who, when they first built their first dashboard, build something, but you don't put yourself in the spot, like this. I didn't. Because you're like, all the colors, all the charts, and all the things, all in once. It's a dashboard, right? We're supposed to find everything in one dashboard. That's the purpose. Is it? So this is an example of, honestly, something what my friends made intentionally, because I said, can someone give me, does someone have time to make me an ugly dashboard? She's like, I got you. So I've got to give Jen Dawes, who's also a Tableau ambassador, a high five for this one. And so what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to go talk a little bit about the formatting first in the rabbit hole, and then we'll come back to the dashboard. So we're going to start crawling here first. All right, so does everyone know what I mean by the rabbit hole of formatting? I'm so glad we started this presentation with the calculations because me, the math teacher, I love math. I love the calculations. I'm not a designer, which is why, by the way, I'm calling on y'all later, or y'all are going to volunteer, to help me design because I'm not a designer. But what I have learned is that starting here with a bar chart, this is really easy in Tableau, but eventually I'm like, well, you know what? My audience can't see much from this, so remember those pre-attentive attributes, I might want to sort. So I'm going to walk y'all through just a little bit of some here. I had notes. I left them at home, so I'll fly. So we're going to sort. I like to use this one right here and go, aha! Now we know not just the product category that sells the most, which I remember the back button is so great. I can see that here, but who's the third? Who's the fourth? And psychology says that that position is one of the best uses of that pre-assigned attribute, or best pre-assigned attribute to use to help your audience find an insight. So, what else can we do here? Yeah, I had some notes. I don't know what I was going to say. So in Tableau, we can add some text. I don't know if you know how to do this. I'm kind of lazy. I like to hold the control key and just drag my sales to label, let go of the mouse before the key, because why not drag from over here? Well, here's why. Because sometimes you've already formatted this pill, you've made a table calculation or something in it, and you want to label with it, and you want to do some things with the label, and of course you can hit the T up here as well, but I like to have it on my marks card for multiple reasons, so control drag, there's your friend. So I'm going to give you a few other tips here with formatting. So a lot of times when we have multiple sales in our view, sometimes it's hard to figure out which one, or I said sales, but I meant multiple metrics in our view. Which one do I want to format? Which pill do I format to make this, in this case, give me dollars, give me currency? So I like to stick to the rule of formatting the pill that's doing the writing. So I can get my answer up here, and you can click on the drop-down, choose format, and change your pane. Notice there's a tab here for axis as well. That gets confusing because sometimes it defaults to axis, and then you're like, where am I? You can change it there. I do like to format the one though, doing the writing. It kind of help me figure it out. So make sure when you're here, like I just showed you, change to pane, and you can change here very easily to currency. And I'm sure many of you do this multiple times a day, right? Changing the pill to currency. If not, it's a great little, it's a great thing to get into the hang of, because once again, the math teacher and me will say, 881 what? If you don't give me the dollar sign, or the whatever it is, the units that you're using. So that helps. So what else can we do here? Another thing we can do to guide our audience is look at color. And again, this is just the basics, crawl before we walk. And it defaults to this blue. I left that in a lot of my visualizations today. Y'all are going to help me with color later. But one thing we might want to do is help our audience see which product subcategory has the highest sales. So one way we can use that is with color as well. I went ahead and created a calculation here. And had some work with problem solvers. Bear with me. Here's my calculation. I'm just saying, using a window calculation, it's just saying, hey, give me the max, what has the max sales in my view, and then when are these two equals? When is the sum of sales equal to the max sales? So if I drag that to color, that should always come up true. Here's my true false. We can change the color. You can either do it on the marks card here, or you can even double click in the color legend here. It'll help you decide which color. I was going to make a joke. There we go. Brian, in the words Brian earlier, I like what you said. You're like, I don't like this color. So I always go in here and change it. And I like my Seattle grays here for the false. So I'm going to gray that one out and just make a color, not traffic light. No, we're not going that way. I like something to pop. No, let's just pink. And then now you're using color to help your audience understand what's largest. Yes, you can see the longest bar, but now you're really focusing in on that. By the way, how much time do I have? I just forgot what time. I forgot to ask what time we're ending. Oh, just 1 year. Okay. All right, because we can go for a long time. Remember how I said it's a rabbit hole? Oh, watch this. So If you right-click anywhere in your view, you can choose format. I always do the right-click. You can choose format up here as well because of rabbit hole. And you go over here. Has anyone ever gotten lost here? Me, for sure. So again, I'm going to guide you through. This is for the beginners. I'll get you faster here. Up here at the top, this is going to guide you. Are we going to change font, alignment, shading, borders, and lines? How many times have you confused the borders and the lines? Oh my goodness. The day that I realized where the difference are and when I can find a difference, I format really fast now. That's why I chose this as my presentation, because I'm a fast formatter, but it's also because I taught Tableau for like 2 years. So, if you go over to borders, it's going to get rid of anything on the outsides. I don't have any of that. Here, though I have lines. I have these grid lines. Maybe I want to get rid of them. So if you change down here the tabs, whether you're changing the entire sheet, this says none on grid lines. But that's because it was manually chosen to columns. So sometimes you may also throw yourself off here. You chose the sheet, you're trying to change something to none, but you're like, but I still have grid lines. You're going to have to check the tabs here. Oops, and get rid of your grid lines. Do you have to get rid of grid lines? No. It depends on your audience, once again. Some people, like me, like to get rid of the grid lines indefinitely. And then every once in a while, I might actually bring them back for some visualization because someone said, hey, it'd be helpful to have grid lines. So here's another visualization I'm going to show you here. If you don't already do this, the thing that I like to do is format my entire workbook when I start. Just the entire thing. That's and to format the entire workbook, go to Format at the top, and then you can choose Workbook. Does anyone do this where you just walk in, as soon as you open it, format the entire thing? How much time does that save? Because if you're going through every single page and getting rid of grid lines and changing the font, you are going to spend a lot of time in the rabbit hole. So we're going to pull you out of the rabbit hole right now. Notice I have a new formatting pane here on the left. We're going to format it. This is already, I already did this one. This is got the fonts and the sizes chosen. But here, down here under lines, I'm going to get rid of all my grid lines. So if we click on this, go to off. Now the grid lines are gone forever. If you want to format a sheet on its own to have grid lines, this does not keep you from doing that. So you can right-click in the sheet that you want to add the grid lines to, and you can do that. But I like to do this to save myself time. I'm honestly usually keep my 0 lines, but I get rid of my axis rulers. And axis rulers can also be added back, just like the axis ticks. Axis ticks, they don't have an on-off. There's a opacity. I drop all of that stuff. That's just me, though. Anyone have a favorite thing to just do right here in the beginning? Besides grid lines. No favorites? Say it again? I love the Georgia font, too. I like that one, too. It's just a pretty font. All right, now, so who can tell me what these things are on the side? Are these lines? How do I get rid of these things? I told you it's... I didn't tell you there was a quiz, but you do quiz.
Hide axis.
You can hide the axis. You can right-click, and you can uncheck the show header. But I still have the lines. Can y'all see them? What if I don't want that? I want to say what it is.
That's a border.
It's a border. Yeah, but sometimes they look like lines, so our brains are like, get rid of the lines. How do I get rid of the lines? Right-click Format, and then remember border. I like to think that it looks like a window. Okay, get rid of the window. Get rid of, I'm going to go to Sheet and just get rid of the row. I'm going to call them dividers. Now, pretty. Sometimes you want to do that because what I created here was a spark line. And this spark line is showing me sales over time. So speaking of formatting for your audience, let me show you what this used to look like. And I'm not going to create a new sheet here. I'm just going to do it on top of here. So I have sales right now by month of order date. And this is really what it looked like when I brought that in. So my audience I'm telling you what I've actually learned, okay? This has happened to me recently more than once. And they said, I don't want to see this heartbeat line. What they're saying is, I don't need to see every fluctuation of the month or the week or whatever it is. They just want to see the general trend. And then the next question I get is, can you just throw a trend line in there? And if you know me, you know how I feel about that. I was a statistics teacher, come on. We don't just throw trend lines for no reason, unless it matters. But yes, you could throw a trend line in there. What I like to do, anyone going to guess what I did for this one? Moving average, yeah. Just a moving average, because it's smooth. What it does is two things. It smooths out the noise. However, you can still see some seasonality if it exists, and that's important. So that's where I changed this, and I'll just pull this off. And I changed this to the table calculation with a moving average of over the last 6 months. So then, how did I do my point at the end? Formatting tricks here. So I made this point at the end, and it looks like this. One thing I'm really bad at are figuring out how to use these calculations and exactly what goes in here. I mean, I know it now because I've worked with Tableau enough, but just knowing intrinsically what numbers do I put here. So instead, what I did to create this is I went into the table calculation that I already built and double click on it and just grabbed it from here and stuck it there. And that way I had what the actual calculation. So this basically says, if I'm at the end of my row, I'm at the last row, then return the sum of sales. But it's not just the sum of sales, it's actually the moving average. So I pulled that calculation in there, and that's where I got the point. So anytime that you've created a table calculation in a fill, you can double click on it and pull it from there. Anyone to do that? Again, I like shortcuts, so that's a shortcut. All right, so we need to align with our stakeholders. So there's some formatting tips and tricks, and there's a lot more than that because it is a rabbit hole, but hopefully that helped a little bit. Our stakeholders are like, all right, great. You know Tableau. Perfect. Give me analysis of sales and profit. Where are we winning? And that's where I wish you could see the name of my tab here. It says, it's Superstore Dashboard. Oh, yeah. Because this is when you walk in there and you're like, I did it. Here you go. Everything there. What you think? What would you do different? Just name one thing that stands out that you're like,
color.
Screaming cat. What about the color?
Too much color.
There's too much color. The text is on top of each other. Yes. Oh, another thing is hard to tell from where you're sitting is that the color in this chart is not referring to the color in this chart. So we've got the different colors of states, but then we have different colors. And we'll talk more to that in a bit. So you show this to the executive, and they're like, okay, maybe I need to give you a better direction. So this is why going in there and having your questions ready, talking to them, giving them some ideas, wireframing, really finding out what they need is important because they don't even know until you show them what they don't. So, okay, I prefer to see a dashboard that's directional and high level. This is an executive dashboard, got it. I don't know about any of you guys. I really like building KPIs. These are fun. And so I'm going to get out of this one real fast and just show you some little formatting tricks here. Who is on Team Float? Who floats their dashboards? No judgment. It's the outer padding. You change your padding. Who changes the padding? Favorite of mine. Because I can go over here to the outer padding. The default was 4 on all sides. So when you bring it in, it looked like that. You can change that very easily, making it look like one cohesive piece in your dashboard. Nice, right? Oops, jump over there. There you go. All right. So padding, very, very helpful, and the layout. the layout is your, the layout tab is your friend. Containers are your friend. Whether you float or you tile, the containers are your friend, especially for formatting. Any questions here so far on how to or what if or yeah?
When you did those moving averages for your spark line there, are you doing any kind of labels on those? If so, are you doing the moving average as a label, or are you doing the actual values?
That's a really good question. For the spark lines in general, it depends on your audience. Many folks don't put any labels on spark lines. Kind of the idea is just to get the overall trend over time. However, depends on your audience. I would always label, I would, in this case, I would make it a tooltip to say 6-month moving average, because it's got to be clear that it's not a point in time. That is a good point. One thing that I do, actually I'm going to do it here on the fly real fast. One thing I like to do to answer those questions is, I'm going to change the floating right here, and I'm going to bring a vertical object here. I'm going to cover the entire piece. And since this is your computer, I can't pull in an icon here. But what we can do is create a collapsible container that goes on top of it. You can have an information icon. And you color this, put the whole background gray here. Just color it enough that they can still kind of see through. And then in here, you can add text, and actually that needs to be tiled here. You can add text to tell your audience what they're looking at. So you could say, oh, I got this background here. I can't read this. This background's not going to have this. Okay, all spark lines represent 3 months, 6 months. Let's see. Should fix that. 6-month moving average, and probably didn't spell something right. Click OK. There we go. No, it's working. And you can make this as an overlay explaining what's happening in your dashboard. And they don't have to navigate anywhere else to get the information on the dashboard. I like doing this because people have questions, right? There we go. Now I can see. I'm going to make this darker. And then make it bigger. And then, like I said, I'm afraid to do too much of this on the fly because we get perfections. There we go. So you want them to see the dashboard a little bit from behind, but then give them some direction. So you can actually put that in there. Hey, this is what this means. This is what this means. And have up here on the right a little icon that just has like the little eye, and then they can find out more. So here you go, because it is your audience. Another thing I want to show you. Any other questions before? Yep.
Can you show us how you did that red and green arrow depending on the value?
Absolutely. I was about to go there. How did you read my mind? Yep, going there right now. So that's actually one of my favorite things to do, is to bring in some formatting here to help people just see up and down. Now, it's up to you if you want to put the arrow up in front or at the back of the value. And I use parentheses for the negative instead of a negative because sometimes you can't see it. Up to you and your audience. But let me show you a couple things on how I did that. I'm going to start with the percentage and some things you can do here. You can change. Remember, I'm going to look at the pill doing the writing, which is the percentage. I knew where it was, so it's easy to find. And then over here, where remember earlier I showed you how to change the currency, you can actually customize how it's formatting. So that's how I grabbed. I'm actually going to copy this for, oops, that's not what to do. I'm going to copy this for later because I need it there. So this tells me I want positive percent, and then I want the negative in parentheses. I know that didn't answer your question, but that was one of the things I was going to talk about here. So for this text, I am going to, I'm going to open this up so you can see. I'm going to make this bigger. See this for a second here. You'll see that the fields I put in here, I have 3 fields. I have my up arrow, my down arrow, and of course the percentage change. The way that you can get the arrows to be different colors is you have to write a calculation separate from each other. So I'm going to open up those calculations for you now. All right. And I had these originally in folders, but then I had to. Did anyone have to replace your data source? And then once you replace the data source, and all your folders go away? It's fun. And I just didn't have time to fix it. I realized I was dealing with an old data set. I needed 2022 data, so I needed to replace it. So that's what you have with big data problems. All right, so let's see, rolling 12. So this is rolling 12 months or 365 days, really. I did it on the daily level. So I created a percent change calculation and just very simply made it if it's less than, it's down. If it's greater than 0, it's up. So I made 2 separate calculations. So this says else null. That means nothing returns for this field if it's null. And by the way, if you ever have the chance of getting 0, you might want a third calculation where either the arrow goes sideways or that you just have it null. But you'll want to do something just in case it's 0, if that's the case. All right, so then I have the other one that has the up arrow. Do you guys know how the shortcut for the up and down arrows? I'm a big fan of the little alt codes here. Now on a laptop, I don't know how to do this in Mac. I don't know if it's possible. I think in Mac you're just going to have to copy paste. I'm not sure. I do know that you can pull up emojis by window and I was going to show you this later. I'm showing you now. Window and then the period. And then, you get emojis. And in Tableau, you can pull in emojis. So if you want the down arrow instead of not being a down arrow, and you want it like a brownie face, you can totally do that in Tableau. You're welcome if you didn't know that. But for the down arrows and up arrows, you just hold down the Alt key. You got to have number lock on, and it's Alt 30 for the up, Alt 31 for the down, and you can Google that if you don't have to memorize that. There's an S at the end. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, unicodetable.com.
That's it. That's it. I think I actually have it pulled. Oh no, I had it pulled up on my computer. Oh, yep. And that's one thing I didn't think about, so I don't want to get into your computer stuff. But there is something else that I'm going to show you that also found in Unicode, and that's a transparent character. Do you use transparent characters too? So one of the issues, and I stole this from the Fleur-Lidge twins. I have to give them, I didn't steal, I borrowed. I'm going to give credit. So Kevin Fleur-Lidge showed this on our Tableau tips when we were raising money for our, at Analytic Vizion, we were raising money for Playground. We used Tableau tips, and people gave their best Tableau tips, and this was awesome because he showed there's an actual invisible character here, and he cut, battery life. We good? Because this is not my computer, I'm not going to Google this, but you can Google the Google transparent character, and you can just copy and paste it in, so you don't need to know any codes. And so what I did there, why would I put it in the front here? Any idea why I might want to put it there? Make some space, yeah. And sometimes I might make that even larger because I need to break that out a little bit more because sometimes they overlap, right? Now, before I learned that, one of the things that I was doing for years and you may not know that you could do this. This is something you can click on that label and move it over manually. But of course, if you're dealing with data that's constantly updating and you don't want to keep going into the dashboard every day to do that, you need a better option. So having those transparent characters are helpful. How many more minutes do I have? 10. Okay. Well, I know some people have to go, so I'm going to make this quick. All right. So we went into the weeds a little bit there, but I wanted to make sure y'all saw some of those formatting tips. Now, this may be too simple, and I love to just quote Einstein. We want it simple, but not any simpler. So what do? Well, we need to ask more questions once again. Okay, what does the executive really want to know? Well, they want to know, I want to drill into the data though. I want to see those insights, but then drill into the data as well. So some little formatting tricks. I'm just going to show you a couple things on this one. And same KPIs, brought in some states with a hex map, which you can Google how to do. Those are really easy. They're really not bad at all. There's even, I can't think who it was, but somebody's got the data there that you can download. I think it's Matt. No, I think it's Matt in Clemson. Matt.
Oh, Chambers.
Chambers. Yes, he has it downloadable. So, couple things here. Number one, you can bring in, another thing I took from the Village Quiz is I use PowerPoint to create this little bar to help. In PowerPoint, you can give it some nice shading. I told you I'm not a designer. I just watch what other people do and I go, oh, that would look cool. So then I go to PowerPoint and I make my little bar and I save it as a picture, and then notice over here you can drag in images. By the way, this image is tiled, so you can see the images here. And then over the image, there's one of my floating elements. I have floated this piece right here that floats just right over there. So there's my 3% of the time floating something, where I like to put the date. So I have a date that gives me the week of, and it's actually updated now, so we're working with my earlier because this data goes to the end of the year. But I do a week of calculations. That way people know, is it up to date? Is this up to date? Oh, do you get that question? How up to date is this? Well, some kind of timestamp is helpful. And then right click, goes back. And then another thing is use a parameter. I'm just going to go kind of quickly here. Use a parameter to create the region selection. That way over here, you can see which region is selected. Now, anyone see something interesting in the KPIs? You see anything change in the KPIs? I've got a warning sign, yeah. All right, so this is one of those, I want to show you something cool that I didn't know Tableau could do a few years ago, and all of a sudden I went, what? You can actually use your caption. Does anyone leverage the captions? I use the caption to tell me, this is an alert that I built. So I wanted an alert anytime the profit dropped more than 20% from last year. It was just arbitrary, I made that up. But you can create the alert for whatever you want. And so and this is where the icon came from my emojis. So that just the piece of the windows, pull that down with the period, whoops. Should probably hold it down. And you can get your emojis. So I could have done all. Actually, the fingers crossed would be a good one too. I'm like, I might do that next time. How are we doing? Well, I didn't lie. So you can do that as well. Build that in, and then how you do that in your view is when you click on when you click on the sheet that's in your view, you just choose caption and it'll appear. So it's a nice little trick there. And then the last thing here that I'm going to show you real quickly is to do the table like this. I just create these dummy fields. I do them in there. So you can just double click in the rows or the columns and just start typing average of 0. And then you get a field there. That's going to mess up, but I need it there. And then you get another field. So there, I made these, let's see here. By the way, if you have a whole bunch of marks cards, the best way to find everything, for me at least, you just click on the pill here, and the right one pops up. You're like, oh, that's the one I want, and I want it to be a circle. And then you can read what you need there. What I did is I made these are all circles that I made, and actually I didn't have time to do much with them, so here's what I'm going to do on the fly. Change the size down to the circles and make them that way they pop up. And then they're white. There's probably other ways to do this. This is the way I do it. And then on the text field, I get the text. So, all right, real quick. So many things. Not enough time. All right, so this was the last point that I don't know why I didn't come up on there. It was funny because it was that. This was told to me recently too. I'd never heard this, and I liked it. I liked it better than using best practices because this really gives you more guidance. It's called the craft principle, and it's just thinking about, okay, for your audience, is there enough contrast? Can they see like basically between what's happening? Because that first dashboard, the oh yeah, is not oh yeah. Like you can't even tell what's happening. Repetition. So the things that are important to know that they actually can see it because you have pointed it out, and there's enough repetition. And repetition can also have to do with your metric that you're focusing on. You are focusing on multiple different ways. Alignment, well, that's your dashboard. In your dashboard, make sure things are aligned and just not Wild West. Proximity data, metrics that mean the same thing near each other. So the last thing I wanted to do was ask you, okay, there are things on this dashboard that I don't like. I could go all day. But just real quickly, I wanted to give you the opportunity to just throw out if there's anything that you would change. I'm going to say that I, just for time's sake, color is a problem here. So there's a problem with color still. The red-green can be a problem with up-down arrows. Oh, and I left the tooltip on there. Didn't mean to multi.
Legend maybe?
There's no legend. Exactly. Yeah, the red-green, that, again, depends on your audience. Sometimes the red-greens work great with the arrows because they're not in the same visualization, and you see which one's up and which one's down. But again, it depends on your audience. On this particular sheet, I could have done something like, not legend, I don't want to bring the color legend in. But what I do like to do is use the title to just say, last 12 months versus prior 12 months, or last year versus previous. I just didn't want it rolling, so that's what I did. And then pull those colors in that I used to show that's my color legend. So now I'm not taking up so much space. And then here, middle layout, I can actually get this to be white. There we go. And then that can be used for color legend. And then I don't have to tell what metric it is because these actually are different metrics. But the colors do mean the same thing. It's just year over year type. I'm not saying I'm right, but it's an idea. And that wasn't actually the right color blue, but we'll let it go for right now. It should have been the right color. You know what? Actually, I'm going to do this because somebody may not know this little trick. To get the right color blue, I can just highlight it, go to more colors, pick screen color, and then just go grab it from a bar. There we go. Now I'm happy. Anything else with color? Feel free to just tell me it's awful. It's fine. My feelings aren't hurt.
The borders aren't balanced.
You're right. At the top, I did that border. Is that what you meant? And then
Well, the fat border around the 376 and all the rest, which match the map, the actual map on the side.
Oh, yep. This one and this one, you mean?
Yep.
Okay. That was intentional, but I don't know if it looks good, though. That probably could use some work. What about the colors in the map?
You don't have a legend tell you what's yellow versus blue or...
Yeah. Yeah, there's no legend. In fact, I'll even go further and say if I'm using blue as the last 12 months down here, then the blue in this map should mean the last 12 months, and it doesn't. These are actually profit. And I did make this filterable by the state as well. That's a no-go. So this is where I would change one of the colors. I would either change the colors down here to be two, honestly, I'm a big fan of neutral colors, so I would just use two neutral colors down here, or I would change the map to be neutral colors, or really, I could just get rid of the map. I don't really need it, because it takes up a lot of space. I don't use a lot of maps, but the user may have asked for it, so you should be careful with those colors. Kind of closing up kind of quickly there, because I want to make sure, oh, I know why it didn't show up there we go, and just change that. There we go. So that was quick to me, not to you probably. And I apologize. There was some I had a bit last minute switch to somebody else's computer, but thank you, Jason. That was very helpful. Are there any questions? Did you learn anything today? Because that makes me feel good because I'm a teacher. I know I could learn some from you, so if I had more time, I really wanted to find out, well, what else would you do to change this dashboard? So if you have any, afterwards, if you're like, hey, Anna, I got an idea for your dashboard, tell me, because I'm constantly learning with this tool. So y'all have a great rest of your day. Anything, any other, say again?
Nicole Nelson, thank you slide.
Yeah, I want, yeah, there's a thank you slide. All right, let me find it.
You're good. Awesome. Cool, join me up here. Everybody give a round of applause to Anna.